Week 1 is done. We did it. We came, we saw. Some of us conquered, some of us failed. Some of us fumbled miserably. We'll kind of get into it all here. I needed some deep, in-depth breakdown, so I brought Nick back. Welcome back to the pod, Nick.
Matt, I'm excited to be here. Let's break down week 1. Let's get ready for week 2.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Congrats on the first one of the year.
Thanks, man. I'm sure we'll break it down in a sec, but it was definitely not a sure thing. I didn't feel great about it going into it. That surprised Mark Andrews inactive. That definitely got me. Taysom Hill was not helpful, but I lucked out.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into it more, but definitely a lot of disappointing performances for a lot of people. But just kind of wanted to do something a little different here. Kind of talk about some of the big week 1 takeaways just in the NFL in general. Clearly, I need to reevaluate the way I look at fantasy football because defenses dominated this week. There were probably 2 to 3 matchups that were altered significantly by defenses this week, and they came to play and offenses did not.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I went back and looked. I play in a couple other ESPN leagues, something we talked about before offline, you and me. And I'm not entirely sure why your defenses in this league score quite as many as they do, but for all of the joking and ribbing in that group chat, it is something I guess maybe is worth thinking about, whether it means you're streaming or whether it means you hold 1 or 2 and you play them all year. The defenses in this league do score more than most leagues, so it is a legitimate,
Yeah, and I did look at that like comparatively one league that I'm in that has like a little bit harsher scoring for defenses. Like the Cowboys on that one, I think scored like 35, so it was about a 7-point swing.
yeah.
So definitely very willing to move on the scoring for defenses. It's never changed in the 4 years we've had this league, so it just kind of is what it is. Just I think it really was just a big week for defenses in general because I think in this league the scoring for defenses as far as touchdowns go is pretty beneficial and
Yeah.
special teams. But
Well, and to the point you just made, I have no idea what the rest of the league will think when they watch this. But my personal opinion is once the year is started, once we've drafted, once we're playing, you should almost never change a single rule in season unless it is unanimous.
I agree.
Because if
And
somebody, for example, we ripped some people for the defense draft picks. Look, man, if the San Francisco 49ers defense or the Cowboys defense end up being the reason you win, and you did know that going in, good for you. You deserve to win.
I agree. No, I definitely have no intention of wanting to change the scoring now that the season's underway, but just
Right.
an all-season evaluation type situation. So, that being said, some other takeaways, just horrible to see with what happened with the Jets last night. I can't recall any single player meaning more to a team and a city changing in a fan base than Aaron Rodgers did to the Jets, and just sucks that it lasted 4 minutes.
Yeah, I've got a pretty good friend who's a Jets fan, and we've talked before, like we're both Orioles fans for baseball. I know it's not the same sport, but when you have a fairly tortured fan base who hasn't seen a lot of success recently, it would be pretty gutting if I was a fan of the Jets and saw Aaron Rodgers go down in the first 4 minutes. So
Yeah, your season's over. I mean, do you think Zach
yeah.
Wilson can do it, or do you think you bring in Carson Wentz and he gets it done? Like, I mean, it's over.
I actually think probably bringing in Wentz or Flacco is what they're going to do if they haven't already announced one of those things. I've been working it. I haven't had a chance to look. I don't know if it's actually happened
Yeah,
or not.
they said it's Zach Wilson's team, but we know what that means. He said that they said that every year. So
Zach Wilson's
yeah.
not good, but also if Zach Wilson had been traded in the offseason or was cut for some reason, I think most pundits would be saying right now, Zach Wilson's a great guy to go trade for if you're the Jets because he knows the system already.
You're probably right.
I don't think he's going to be that good. He's not a very good
No.
quarterback. But you know what? Their defense is really good, and they competed last night. Josh Allen had a pretty subpar
Awful.
Josh Allen performance. But I don't know. They could be the 09 Jets or something like that, right? I mean, they could definitely still win 9 games, 10 games.
Well, shit, Brees Hall plays like he did. Absolutely.
Yeah. The defensive running game are strong. But yeah, I think it does take you out of the championship window that you thought you were in.
Yeah. And then on some positive fun spins, reports came out today that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift have been hanging out in a casual setting. How do you feel about that?
Is this like this? I haven't seen that. So is that why he got hurt last week? I have Travis Kelce in a different league, so even though I don't have him in this one, I'm pretty attached to Travis Kelce.
Yeah, it just came out that he's
hurt?
been hanging out with the last like month or so. So on his podcast, he was wearing a John Mayer t-shirt. So there's definitely some fun play going on there. But
That is pretty funny.
maybe that's why his knee got a little more messed up, getting a little extra activity with Taylor.
Yeah, man.
And then last thing I saw that kind of caught my eye was Baker Mayfield. Have a day. He came out, he balled and beat what I thought was a pretty good Vikings team.
I was impressed. I play in a 14-team league. Outside of this, it is a super flex. So you play 2 quarterbacks generally.
Mm-hmm.
So in a league like that, Baker Mayfield is not only owned, but he was like a quarterback I started last week. So I was watching him real closely. just because I expected him to hopefully at least have a day with those receivers. And I think he started like 1 of 7 or 1 of 8. But I'll tell you what, man, like the mid-second quarter, Baker turned into Baker from that year. He was a rookie of the year because he looked great. He
He
didn't miss
did.
like 4 or 5 passes the rest of the game. And they came back, they won. I mean, I don't think the Vikings are that good, but it was impressive. He probably gave me some confidence and keep the job all year.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect the Bucks to keep that game close, let alone
Me
win.
neither.
But so maybe that says more about the Vikings than it does the Bucks. But guess we'll wait and see.
My
But with
favorite
that
thing I
being,
saw with that too is Vikings last year I think were either 9-0 or 10-0 in one-score games. This year they're 0-1
yeah,
in one-score games.
yeah, there's a lot of teams that play a lot of close games, but they seem to always be the one that pendulum swings real hard one way or the other each season. Because I remember 2 years ago they were awful in one possession games as
Yeah.
well. So, but moving into fantasy here, we gave a nice little interview to the champ Ed last week. So, just kind of wanted to ask you a couple questions since you're so nice to join up here with me. But I know you felt pretty good about your team during and after the draft. But now you had a kind of week to digest and see how some of your guys performed. How do you feel now about some of the decisions you made on draft day?
That's a great question. I would say, although 1 week in the fantasy football season is like 7 or 8% of your year, so it really isn't nothing. You can't say it's only been 1 week. You kind of have to take it for being, almost 10% of the year's done already. I don't think anything has changed a ton about the way I drafted. I think the structure of the team I built, I still like. I didn't think I had the best team coming out of it. I thought I had a team that was a playoff contender, and I still do think that. But admittedly, if not Travis Kelce, if Mark Andrews is going to miss extended time, that's going to hurt me a lot. And one thing you and I went back and forth on a little bit is after 1 week, I don't look super right about DJ Moore. I still think DJ Moore's going to have a big year, and I feel pretty good about him in the long term. But if he has 2 or 3 straight weeks of bad performance, all of a sudden this becomes wide receiver 2, Jahan Dotson or George Pickens for me. And maybe
Yeah,
Pickens even Deontay's hurt. So we'll see. Generally, I
yeah.
haven't too much with that.
Well, what do you have? Three targets. Yes, Sunday for the Bears. It
Yeah.
wasn't much.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 targets.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Fields looked awful. There are a lot of quarterbacks who looked really bad this week, but he was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
But just moving on to the next question, just coming off the strong season you had, your first one in the league. Did you approach anything differently or learn anything from last year to kind of bring into this year to kind of, take that next step from being a playoff team to being a title contender?
That's a good question. And it's one that probably you're going to ask most people you bring on here this year, but I think it's one that matters a lot when you play in different leagues too, or if you're someone like me who doesn't have a super familiar relationship with most of the guys here. Because I didn't feel like there was, in some leagues I'm in, as much trading in this one, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I feel like waivers are pretty competitive until the end. And things like that I do factor in. So if I don't think I'm going to be able to make, 5, 6, 7, 8 trades confidently in a way that gets fair value, I don't want to draft in a way that's going to give me surplus value in an area where I can't trade at all. That definitely factored in. Similarly with waivers, it means I think I have to be pretty proactive and jump out early on the guys I want. You can't really afford to wait a week or two. And that's just league dependence. I mean, I did learn some of last year. I waited I waited a bit longer on a few guys I can remember in the first weeks last year in this league, and there was not the opportunity to pick up guys who I didn't necessarily believe in early on. You kind of have to grab before you see it, I think, in this one.
Yeah, and I will say to that point, there are some teams in this league, and myself included. I probably lead the league in transactions almost every year. I am a huge waiver wire free agency make moves person, but yeah, there are a lot of people in this league that definitely monitor the waiver wire and definitely are not afraid to shoot their shot on a guy they think is going to be good. With the amount of roster spots we have, you can afford to take some swings. And if the guys don't work out, they don't work out. But last question here. I know you got some commentary about taking 3 quarterbacks, and Anthony Richardson looked good. What do you think about him and Deshaun and just quarterback situation going forward?
If I have a sliver of doubt that maybe I was too bullish on DJ Moore, for example, I'm not saying I don't like DJ Moore, so I still like DJ Moore. But if I'm going to potentially revisit that, if he's getting like 4 targets a week in a couple of weeks and say, "Ooh, maybe I was wrong," one thing I'm definitely right about is those quarterbacks. If you look at it, it's been 1 week. Of course, that's silly. But Deshaun Watson looked like kind of ass in real life, I thought, watching that game. He was still a top 5 quarterback. And Richardson was still, I think, 5th or 6th at quarterback. And Kyler's still coming. So I don't regret that at all. I think that was the right way to go. I have 2 guys I feel like are going to be top 7 or 8 plays in fantasy most weeks. And then Kyler's going to be a free keeper for next year. Or Kyler's going to come back and be my starter.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad way to look at it. Richardson looked good. He he missed some throws, but he made some throws. And obviously when you can run like he does, and have the build that he is, I mean, he's going to be a guy that's going to just naturally gain a lot of points. And if he can develop to be a relatively consistent passer, I mean, QB1 is is very obtainable for him as far as how he plays.
His range of outcomes is really high. I'm probably playing him over Watson this week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't if he's healthy. I know he kind of got banged up there at the end of the game, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a necessarily a bad decision. He came out week one and showed it just like Jordan Love did. I mean, they're different situations a little bit, but this guy came out and they played well. So,
Yeah.
and with that, we'll kind of start sliding in here to the wrap up reviews. But just real quick, just Ed and I did some picks last week. So I went 4-2. Ed went 3-3. I was correct about my outcome, your outcome. Rock Boys and Milkman. I was wrong about Risky and Coleman, and we can definitely get into that a little bit. And Ed had the same three as me, except he lost Risky, Coleman, and he had the Milkman, or he had Wazinski beating the Milkman. So that was the only difference there, but kind of fun, little keep track of the records there just for fun there. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Hopefully I can have a strong week picking that. We can get the guests over cross for the year record.
Yeah, there we go. We're gonna go off percentages. So I definitely gonna have a harder time keeping up, I think is the thing. Or we can just do guests versus me. So that would be fun too. But
however you want to do it's fine. I'm just being silly.
Yeah, we'll do it both ways. Screw it. I got time. But yeah, just kind of going down here, my matchup against George. Pretty down day for this team. I like this team on draft day. I mean, obviously Allen, Ron, JJ, did their thing, but pretty much everyone else underperformed, highlighted by Burrow and Najee. Najee scares me long term. I think Burrow is going to rebound. I don't think anybody's going to be concerned about him, but it's a couple guys here, not bad days, not good days, but Najee scares me as your RB1.
Yeah, I think in real life, Najee's not a great player, but I don't know. Watching some of the Niners and Steelers game, the Niners are probably one of the 2 or 3 best teams the Steelers are going to play all year, and the game script is pretty miserable as far as it goes for an offensive player, especially a running back. So I'm not more discouraged than I was going into the week on Najee. Personally, I think he was probably always a high RB2, low RB1 for me. I don't know where you sort of think of him as. I think if we see a couple weeks there where we start to see Jalen Warren take his carries, that's a problem. The guy you just clicked on, though, is important because Javonte Williams on your bench, I think George looked pretty solid this week, more than I expected him to. I thought we were going to see a little bit of a slower build-up for him. Not that I think P. Ryan's not going to play too, but I do think Javonte is probably going to be better sooner than I expected. So that's even better for your team in sense.
17 touches. We like that.
We
like that. And it looks like 12 for P. Ryan. So I think, obviously if Javonte's looking good, he's going to be the guy. So that bodes well.
Your team's going to be here and put almost 130 points up, so it's probably going to be hard to win most weeks anyway. It's the variance of fantasy football. George, but I wouldn't change much if I'm George anyway, though, just because, again, Najee was in like the worst game script possible. Burrow had probably like his 2nd or 3rd worst game ever as a starting quarterback, I think. So I wouldn't really – and the weather was shit there too. If Burrow is bad for a few weeks, you worry. But I would probably run most of these same guys right back out there and feel good about it next week.
Yeah, I think this team just had a rough day and definitely is – I still like this team a lot. And then just kind of shifting over to my team makes me feel good about how I drafted because my top 3 guys that I picked each had really nice days with Aaron Jones and Olave and Chubb and Jags defense was a pickup. They were just not drafted. I just swapped them out. But everyone on my team besides Rachaad White just had, strong days. So not much else to be said. I like my team. They came out and played good week 1, so I'm happy about it.
Only thing I'd add is if I were you, I might start maybe one more week if the lot of you ran out there. But after that, Rachaad White might be someone I pull out for Traco, maybe if it's the right matchup. I might be looking on the waiver wire for some of these early guys first couple weeks here.
Yeah.
I don't think he looked great. I think Sean Tucker is also going to factor in there. Other than that, this starting lineup you have here, I would run out probably the rest of the year for the most part.
Yeah, well, obviously, if we can move Aaron Jones up to the RB2 and then have fun in the flex. But
right.
Yeah, I did see some bad metrics on White on his performance on Sunday. So don't love that, but the volume I think is still going to be there. And if he can get right in the next couple of weeks, I think it's gonna be okay long term. And then just kind of moving into your matchup here against Team Nate. Looking at Teams Nate, not too far from what I kind of expected when you had Evan Hall in the starting lineup. Bijan looked really good. Diggs definitely overperformed from what I thought against a good Jets defense like we talked about, and I think this team's has the opportunity to break 100. I wouldn't say consistently, but enough to where he should be able to win enough games to maybe contend for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this team's good. And obviously, I was watching it really closely playing against him. You got rod a little bit with the JT situation, man, since the draft. We drafted, we didn't know JT was going to hold out. That's rough. So, but when he comes back, and I think he probably is coming back or getting traded after his first 4 weeks, JT and
Yeah.
Bijan, very lethal 1-2 at running back.
Yeah, if
Until
the
then,
JT situation works out, yeah.
the only thing I
What's
would
that?
suggest is maybe until then, or even with that happening, I would maybe look again. I talked about it a little bit ago. Assessing these teams moving forward. Maybe to have 4 receivers I like, and one of them you couldn't even start here, and Godwin. I would definitely be interested if I were you, and maybe trying to find a way to get someone's high RB2 or low RB1 for one of your better receivers, or again, if you want to trade the lower receivers, RB2, just so you're not playing something like Evan Hull for the next few weeks. Because I think you do have a chance to make the playoffs and be a little bit of a threat there. You also got screwed here a little bit with the Dak game script. The Cowboys scored
Short
multiple.
fields and running, yeah.
Yeah, and the offensive touchdowns they scored were both Tony Pollard on my team. I thought I was going to lose this matchup, to be honest with you, with Mark Andrews not playing, and then just a handful of other things not going my way either. I don't think either of us played an especially good first week of fantasy football. Again, happy to get the win, but I think Nate's team is good and has a very decent chance of being a contender.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, with Jonathan Taylor, if he's able to, get on the field, soon enough here, I guess. I mean, I know that Evan Hall just got put on IR today, so
Yeah,
that's
he's
not
not
great
playing
news for him.
again.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been much of a factor moving forward anyway. Just he did not look good. But yeah, I mean, this team definitely has potential. There's definitely there. A lot of guys pretty close to their marks, but Bijan and Diggs can help you out, and Dak obviously is going to get more than 6 points a week. And then talking about your team real quick, Tony Pollard took advantage of the opportunity with the short fields, and like you said, the game script just they fed him early and often, which is what you should do with a really good running back. The tight end situation, like you hit on a bunch, that's very unfortunate. But Taysom Hill, obviously that didn't work out very well, but kind of put in a tough situation there. But no, I mean your team again put up almost 100 points. Slightly concerned about Henry's touches. Maybe they're just keeping him chill for the beginning of the year, like some of these other teams are doing with their running backs. But Waddle, obviously a pretty down day. But all in all, I mean, I think your team underperformed for what I think of it, but still 96 points is going to beat a fair amount of teams with how this week went, and I think you're looking pretty good moving forward.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Nothing more to add to that.
Fair enough. All right, well, moving forward here, we'll go to Tongue Cat Throat Yogurt versus the Rock Boys. I like this Tongue Cat team. I wasn't super high on it after the draft just because of the running backs. I still don't love the running backs, but with Kelty coming back in and this team putting up 105 points this week, I think this team's going to be putting up between 110 and 120 pretty much every week. And based off how week one went, that's going to win. So I like this guy's receivers a ton. Devontae with a slow day, but all in all, Addison looks like a good flex option apparently. And this team's looking pretty well built as far as the starters go.
Nothing to add there. I wouldn't change a single thing in your starting lineup, Ryan. Yeah. Looking at this, I said maybe I would float some things on my teams or Cross's teams previously. I think I would run the same team out there again, just add Kelsey in there, obviously, and you're going to be fine. You got Rod with Kelsey the same way Andrews hurt me, and a lot of guys have gotten hurt, so it's hard to really fault that as an excuse. But I think your team's good. I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah, I like this team more today than I did last week.
Because you like James Conner now.
I don't like James Conner now. I think he did well enough to keep the ball floating up, and I think I was maybe not as high on Ridley as I should have been. I like Ridley a lot.
Yeah, Ridley is like legitimately probably the 8th or 9th receiver for drafting today, maybe even higher.
Yeah, he's probably going. He's probably going in the Waddle world. If we did a redraft,
he's with Waddle and Olave, I think for sure.
Yeah, but no, it looks like a good pick, and this team solid. Rock Boys, obviously the Cowboys defense stole the show here, and Ryan probably gets the win if the Cowboys defense doesn't do what it does, because still a relatively close game with a 43 spot from the defense, but this team has a lot of potential. Obviously, really bad day from Josh Allen. I don't think that's going to be anything tremendous. I will add he has the most turnovers since he's been in the league. So, some of that narrative is true as far as his ball security goes. And if it's year 6 now with him and he's still doing it, I don't know if those things change anytime soon. But some good players on this team like CD and Terry with some low performances that I think bounce back. I still like this team, but if we're going to get a little inconsistency out of the wide receivers and I think CD was kind of hurt by the how the game went as well. But this team screams at me that it's going to be a little inconsistent all year, and this week just got picked up by the defense.
Yeah, I think you start hitting a good point there. I think in a normal game script, where the Cowboys don't score 40 points on defense for him, you probably get more points out of CD anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think this is a similar team that probably is likely to be a playoff roster, or at least a contender for the playoff spot. You're doing it in a week where Kamara, who I know we both kind of went back and forth on a little bit when he was drafted, is one of your weeks without Kamara. So good job surviving a week without Kamara. You're going to be able to plug him in there at some point soon. The only real critiques I have is Marquise Brown, even in a game that was competitive the whole way, didn't really get many targets at all from Dobbs. Josh Dobbs is pretty big on tight ends in his career. Zach Ertz had like 10 targets. So I don't know if you can feel good about Hollywood the next couple weeks.
Yeah, 5 targets.
Sorry, 5 targets then.
Yeah,
But
still
in any
not a
event,
lot.
he didn't ball out in a game that they were in the whole way, is all I'm saying. So
No,
I
I
don't know.
agree.
And then Njoku at tight end, I would definitely be monitoring the tight ends if I were you too. But again, Josh, I think this team is good overall and probably a playoff team. Your
Yeah,
top
I
heavy
agree.
guys are awesome with Eckler, CD, and Josh Allen. And then when you get Kamara back, it's a solid little RB2 there. David Montgomery's going to be more annoying, I think, than anybody expected watching that first game. I mean, he's going to get those Jamal Williams type carries.
Yeah, and I do think Dan Campbell did come out and give the coach speak that Gibbs is going to get the ball a lot more moving forward. They just kind of wanted to ramp him up a little bit. So there probably is some truth to that because that dude is a stud, and we'll get into him a little bit later. But so I think it's going to take away from Montgomery, but like you said, he's going to get a lot of those Jamal Williams within the 10-yard line type carries and a lot of first and second down action as well. So he's probably still a 10 to 15 touch kind of guy, and I think he'll be a little touchdown dependent moving forward as we get into the season, but still not a bad if Kamara's back and he plays like Alvin Kamara, you don't give a shit about David Montgomery. But if he comes back and you need a 1 week where you got him, works out. But yeah, it's a good team. Both these teams I think came out of this week. They should feel pretty good about themselves.
Agreed.
We got Wuhan here versus the Milkman. I think 2 teams that we weren't super in love with off of draft night, but put up some points this week, and CMC says, I don't care who I play against, I'm just going to dominate. That's good to see. And then to put up 111 with T Higgins getting a 0 spot, you got to feel pretty good about where you are with this team moving forward as far as consistent weekly output, and Sky Moore in the flex when Myers and Pittman absolutely pop off. Obviously those flip-flops you win, but this team I think has a lot of firepower to put up points each week.
Yeah, that's the exact note I have. Don't have too much more to add. I mean, this team scored the most points of any team that didn't win week 1. So again, you just ran into a hotter team this week. That's pretty random. 111 wins most weeks. You would have beaten me in my matchup. Good job. And again, you're doing that with T Higgins giving you the worst game of his career, which will not happen again, I'm sure. And then Sky Moore, you can sub out for like the 3 or 4 guys directly under him in that lineup to feel better next week too. So bright future for you.
Yeah, I think Sky Moore is just it's one game, but man, that was a rough watch on Thursday with him.
It's just this generation's McCall Hardman.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably not a bad assessment. But yeah, no, this team feels pretty good moving forward, I would say. And then kind of sliding over to the Milkman, put up 117 with, obviously Tyreek Hill is the factor in fantasy football. So he's going to do this to you and just put up 42 1 week. I even said last week, Fields or Hill can put up 40, 50 points for you. And here we are week 1, it's already been done. So obviously the rest of the team didn't really play that well. Mike Evans with a nice day, which is good for him. He hasn't had one of those in a while. My Chig fear that I spoke about last week is definitely become a reality. I know Tannehill sucked on Sunday and missed him for a wide open touchdown, but that's just what you're going to get with Chig, I think, all year. It's just, 0 or maybe 10 max. But this team's pretty solid all around. And I guess boomer bust guys with Hill and Fields, and that's going to carry you to a lot of wins.
I think I said this on draft recap we did together a couple weeks back too. I am definitely concerned as a person who owns some Bears running backs in other leagues, because I think Roschon looked better than Herbert, but Herbert was very involved still and got, I think, a higher percentage of the important touches anyway before the game was out of reach. And I know you mentioned to me when we were looking at this team after the draft, hey, he's got both. But the issue is sort of what I feared here, I think, where I don't know which one I want to play most weeks. I think the best thing
Yeah.
for you is one of Herbert or Roshan separate themselves, because I think they're probably both fine as like a flex right now based on what we saw in week one. But you can't feel great about either one of them either. So while you have some superstars here in Jacobs and Tyreek Hill, who definitely will keep you in most weeks, I think that's a good outcome for you. Hopefully, is one of them takes the job more from the other, probably Roshan from Herbert, if I'm guessing. I'm speculating. And then I agree
Yeah.
with your point, Cross. I like Chig generally. He's a freak athlete, but it's very popular, like the freak athlete tight end who ends up not doing much in a not very pass oriented offense. So I would be monitoring. I know Ertz is owned in this league, but again, find a tight end who got 10 targets in week one or week two and pick him up. And I think you're probably going to be better off for that.
Yeah, and to your point, Roshan, I think I showed had 12 touches and Herbert had 11. So, like you said, I think Roshan is the more talented player long term, and I think
Agreed.
as the season goes, it might be one of those situations where, again, kind of the ramp up thing we've kind of seen with some of these guys. That as it goes on, Roshan approaches 15 to 20 touches a game, and Herbert slides down to under 10. So it very well could be the case, but all in all, this team's going to be tough to beat when you got guys putting up monster numbers, and this team definitely has that. So, moving on here, I think this one, this matchup we were the most excited about just because of the nature of these two guys against each other. But man, did this one let us down in a lot of different ways. I'll say that. But the real team Coleman, Mr. Purcell takes down another win. We'll kind of get into wins and losses as far as little surprise thing I threw together at the end here. But we'll kind of look at wins and losses over the lifetime. But a lot of pretty mediocre performances on the real Coleman here. 88.9 points, not going to beat a lot of teams. Not a ton of help on the ball. Algier had a nice day, but who knows if you can even start him. The Chargers receivers kind of concern me when you put up 33, 34 points and they combine for 17, 18 points. It's slightly concerning. And James Cook looked okay. So, I mean, the Bills had a rough day, but not too much positive to take away here. I mean, obviously Hurts looked rough too, but so I think there's a lot of room to grow. But there's just some things that kind of stand out to me that I would be slightly concerned about.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd make any big changes personally if I were in your shoes, Purcell. I do think, though, I think I did say it. I don't remember if maybe it was something we clipped out of the podcast now, but I liked Nico Collins on draft night. And Nico Collins, after the first week, and his first performance with Stroud, was like either fourth or fifth in the NFL in air yards in week one. So he had an okay little game, and he also got missed on a few connections.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be someone you eventually, if Mike Williams gets hurt, or if just, like you said, both Chargers don't perform, or if James Cook disappoints you a couple weeks in a row, I think he is a sneaky little play that might end up finding his win your lineup. If Pat Freiermuth is okay, I think he's a useful tight end, better than some of the other ones we've broken down here. But I would keep an eye on him too, because in the first half he only got the one target. Luckily, it was a touchdown. But
same with Hayden Hurst. I know he scored, but
yeah,
a couple
he scored and then tried to get rid of
times.
Bryce's first touchdown.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thankfully, they're lucky in Atlanta. Someone gave it back. I can't believe the road stadium someone gave it back to him. That's lucky.
But yeah, no, good point about Collins. I know you were high on him, and I know Purcell's very high on him as well. So I could definitely see him being slotted into that flex spot, probably maybe as early as this upcoming week. So Algier, I mean, might be a flash in the pan because Bijan's so damn good. But I mean, he looked great. Algier did. So
we'll I feel for Algier because Bijan is like
he's the guy.
Yeah, is Bijan the best prospect besides maybe Saquon since AP? I mean, he's a legitimately really dominant prospect as a runner.
Did you see his touchdown? That was absolutely ridiculous.
But I just say it because Algier, I thought watching some of that game, Algier also looks like he could be an RB1. Like if the Ravens had Algier right now, he'd be our RB1 probably.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. He looked.
He probably won't go away. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it's just I just personally have a hard time trying to find him slot. Like, is this a good fantasy week to start him?
Agreed with you there.
That's I think he's a great player, but again, that's kind of my outlook at that.
Yeah.
And then sliding over to Risky Dipper here. I mean, there are a lot of narratives that can be pushed about this team. I was not big on Dallas Goedert this week, and obviously he had one target for 0 points. But it's week one. Let's set our lineups, guys. And kind of your just desserts getting the loss here, especially with Ayuk popping a 30 piece on the bench when that's clearly the guy you're going to put in. Even, it's just like, I get things happen in life, but it takes 2 minutes to set a fantasy lineup. Christian Watson was out on Friday. This should not have happened, and A little disappointing on my end, honestly, that this did happen. But this team again, just going back to some of the performers, Garrett Wilson's stock way down now with no Rodgers. JK is done for the year, so this team definitely has more questions than answers going into week 2. Don't love Stevenson going forward either, and Saquon I think will be better, but yeah, definitely more questions than answers out of this team week 1.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound too cheery and roses because, like you said, it's a brutal choice to not play one of Ayuk or even Cooks or Mostert. Obviously, like you said, life gets in the way sometimes, and hopefully it's not a thing you have happened to you too many times. But whatever. Moving forward, though, you feel good about those guys having to replace a guy like Dobbins, a guy like Watson who misses more weeks in your lineup. And when Watson comes back, you can feel good. The Packers' offense looked very strong, I thought. Similarly,
Yeah,
you're right about Garrett Wilson, but I don't know. I think Saquon too fell into the same thing we're talking about with like CeeDee Lamb or most of Dallas's offense, where just when you're down 26 points, I don't think Saquon was playing even in the fourth quarter, just because why would you when you're down 33-0? You're not
yeah.
going.
No, I kind of throw that one out. I think Saquon's going to be fine. He looked great on that first drive, and then they just decided to stop running the ball. But that game just kind of got away from him really quick. So
Yeah, you would have
I
liked to
kind of
still
throw that
win.
one
I think
out.
you're a playoff fringe contender, so hopefully you would have liked to have stolen the win, but I don't think you're necessarily out of it. You had some guys on your bench break out. You're going to have to replace Dobbins, like you said, Matt, very astutely. I think Wilson's going to have a much less rosy projection now that you're playing with Zach Wilson, but this team has a chance still.
Oh, I love this roster, and I think this team has potential. It's just a lot of negative things happened this week too. Yes, and Dobbins played what a half, and he had 11 points, so he's clearly back playing well. It's just unfortunate that he gets hurt, especially as Ravens fans. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean there's still a lot of good on this team. This still can definitely be a playoff contender, but just not the start that you're looking for. When you had a relatively soft matchup as far as total points went.
yeah.
And then
No, even
just
Mahomes, man. I mean, game script wise, you're playing with the amount of drops he got, unlike most weeks
yeah.
from Mahomes, without your best player in Kelsey. I mean, that is kind of crazy too. You got the lower number from Mahomes. So
Yeah, no,
sorry.
I think Mahomes, obviously the projection was low and obviously those drops were horrendous. So I'm not worried about, there's a lot, I'm not worried about a lot like the big names of this team, like, Barkley and Mahomes, but, Wilson concerns me and then, obviously JK, but yeah, just, gotta push some buttons this week. Gotta make some moves, gotta get a good lineup out there. And then, I think the surprise of the week for everyone, not a huge day out of review, but Team Coleman, got stuck with the Rogers Stark bug, and here we are looking at 74 points on the board. I still like this team personally. Obviously, pretty small days from Schultz and Pierce, kind of like I thought. Chase, sucked, but that's I think because Barrow was just so bad.
That's like the
That
worst
is,
game of Chase's career. And I mean,
yeah.
you're right. It's brutal having a Rodgers there, but Tua might be like if we drafted right now, is he QB 4 or 5? I think I wanted to see on draft day that he was definitely going to be healthy. He looked healthy to me.
They look great. Yeah.
It
So I
was
mean,
probably better than Rodgers. If Rodgers had played a normal Rodgers game, I'd probably rather play Tua the rest of the year anyway.
I think you're not. I think you're right there. But yeah, moving forward to a slotting in the quarterback's one spot, obviously maybe an upgrade. But at worst, it's potato tomato type
It's really to
situation.
take a zero for the week though to watch Rodgers because if Rodgers is giving you 18 points, you win the game.
Right. So yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but these things do happen. But I expect bounce backs from Pierce and Schultz moving forward, and Chase obviously. So I think this team still is very good. Just a pretty rough start, all in all for me.
Yeah. And I guess I actually would have needed 19 from Rodgers. Bad math there for me. But
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
this team we've said a few of them have had rough luck, and I think a few have, but probably taking a zero from your quarterback is the worst luck anybody's had. So I feel bad for you on that.
yeah.
And Jamar Chase is like a top 3 or 4 pick on draft day. He had the worst game probably of his career when he's played every snap. So better days on the horizon. Rough first week. I don't know if I have a super rosy outlook, just because of the loss of what you thought Rodgers would be. But again, if Tua continues to be what Tua was in week 1, you're probably not going to miss him that much anyway. So I think you still have a shot.
Yeah, I mean, and I could definitely see obviously a Rodgers drop and one of these take a flyer on one of these younger quarterbacks available, and in case Tua does get hurt, you already got a guy that you like already in
I
the
was
slot.
shocked with
So
Schultz too. The last thing I want to say on this team, just because I thought Schultz with a rookie QB would be a pretty great fit. That's generally what I want. Is
mhm.
like we just saw Hayden Hurst score with Bryce Young. Usually, I feel like quarterbacks generally like their tight end. But in a game where Stroud threw like 45 passes, or whatever it was, it's surprising to me how little attention Schultz got. So I don't know if that's a 1 week variance thing. I'd keep an eye on it.
Yeah, so I have Schultz in a couple leagues, and I'm pretty high on him. So I kind of did a little digging. He ran the most routes of any receiver type. That'd be running back, wide receiver, tight end on the Texans week one. I think the Ravens made kind of a point to shut him down because they knew they'd be looking there. And a lot of the highlights I saw, the first read was Schultz. So I do, and he did have 4 targets, which is good, but I think moving forward, if he's going to put up 1.4 with 4 targets against a team that kind of keyed him a little bit, I think moving against a defense that can, especially with good cover, pretty good linebackers these days in Baltimore, I think he'll bounce back nicely. I think he'll be fine. So this team, I still like this team moving forward, but maybe not as high on them as I was. And then just sliding over to the champ here, rear view camera, the winners stay winning in this league. There's something to be said about these guys who, you like them or hate them, they find ways to win, and that's what it's about. So, not too much to point out as far as like overall performances, other than the Jets defense. Zay Flowers looked like a stud, so I think
They
that's
look going to
great.
be super involved. I would basically just sub Brees Hall in for Cam Akers. I know he had 22 touches, but Cam Akers was not the starting running back.
Oh, and
The
I'm definitely getting there to that. I am all in on Jahmyr Gibbs. I am pushing that agenda. He probably could win Offensive Player of the Year, this Rookie of the Year this year. He is awesome. Yeah, he would looked amazing. He looked the best player on the field every time he touched the ball. And Brees Hall looked like his old self, which I was kind of surprised by. I don't know how many touches he had. I know he had that huge run, but
on that 83-yarder, that's the one thing I think it looked kind of like when Dobbins came back last year too. They get back fast because they're freak athletes, but I think he lost a little bit of his last year there. He'll probably have that back by December, I bet.
yeah, I mean, 11 touches in week one coming off a pretty rough knee injury. So I think if he's going to do that, especially with Zach Wilson under the gun there, they're going to run the ball a lot more. So I think Brees is going to be an automatic, just ride it out. This team is, like we talked about on draft day, is very young. But I think, especially the way Flowers looked, this team can really elevate, I think, to a level that gets them in the playoffs in a pretty firm way. And obviously Lamar is going to do better than 5.3. 3 turnovers and no touchdowns. And he didn't run too much, but so I think I have a really positive outlook on this team after 1 week. That's just my view.
I generally do too. Again, the only thing I would do is take Cam Akers out, put Brees in, and then Kittle you got a little bit unlucky with here because similar we talked about with some of the Steelers players earlier. When your team is up big, you don't necessarily throw a ton. And Ayuk took all the touchdowns, and then there wasn't much passing in the last quarter and a half for the Niners anyway.
Right. So with that being said, just kind of looking forward here to week 2. So just gonna kind of start with my matchup here. Don't want to get too in depth here, but just kind of looking at it. I feel good about a lot of my matchups this week. We'll see about Aaron Jones, about the hammy, see how bad that is. The reports are it sounds okay, but we'll wait and see. But all in all, I don't know if I'm really going to change anything about this lineup. Maybe I take some flyers on some guys in waivers, but as far as my starters go, I don't think I'm moving a thing.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would have suggested when we talked about last week was Rashad White, but he's in a good matchup. I would definitely play White this week over Pacheco, some of those other guys. I'd probably as is.
Yeah, I feel good about the matchups, and as long as Aaron Jones plays, I feel pretty solid there. And then Risky Dipper, getting the lineup set. Shout out, thank you for doing that on Tuesday. But we like that. So I mean, this, like we said, this team's got a good roster. It's redemption time. We set the lineup. We're already here. Garrett Wilson, what's the projection? He's projected what he got last week, so that's probably fair. But yeah, no, this team, I think this team has a good chance to beat me this week. But I did give myself the edge here. I do feel like I like my matchups more than his matchups in some places. And I have no clue what Garrett Wilson, like I would be kind of surprised if Garrett Wilson got 12. But I mean, I could easily get boat raced here, but I like my chances this week.
Yeah, I don't think you get boat race. I think it's going to be a close matchup. I would lean, though, with Risky. I think I like some of his matchups better, I think, personally. I think Saquon's going to get the exact opposite of what he got last week. Saquon's going to probably have 30 touches unless he twists his ankle or something. So And I would be shocked if the Chiefs, even against the Jags, the Colts put some points against the Jags, but I think in an extended week, a week and a half long break since Thursday, probably with Kelsey back, I'd be shocked if Mahomes doesn't go nuclear in a game that probably is going to have AFC playoff implications there too. So I would probably lean to the other side here. I wouldn't be shocked at all if your team wins, Matt. I think your team's really good. But I do like some of these matchups he has. I agree with you. Wilson's probably the one I'm most worried about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I picked myself here. I think out of self pride, but no,
Well,
I
you're
could
the one
definitely
seed right
see.
now, man. You should be proud. Be happy.
Yeah, I'll take it while I got it, right? But yeah, no, that Biscuit Dipper's a good squad. I think he definitely has a good chance to win the column. I just, for myself, pick myself. So
He's doing that right now too. That projection without Dobbins, who's now gone forever, without Watson, presumably again.
yeah,
Good team, man. That's a deep team. Like I said,
it
I think I like
is.
that a lot.
It is. And then we got Tongue Cat Throat Yogurt here versus Team Nate. Looks like it didn't update the players, so
Oh,
let's
good.
go.
They got the same teams as last time.
Yeah, easy projection.
That's weird that now they're projecting different points.
So it takes I did that last week too. I took the projections from the players on their actual teams, but it didn't update the names. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. Anyway, Kelsey being expected to be back this week. I think this full lineup by Tongue Cat here is going to kind of come out and steamroll. Not really much else to say. A lot of his team looked pretty good. The running backs proved serviceable, and with Kelsey in there, all signs point up.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see who. Obviously, Nate right now is getting zero credit for whoever he puts in there instead of Hull. You're not going to play Hull, so
obviously, yeah, he got the nice IR designation there. So
I
we're
don't think
definitely
this ends up being a 25-point matchup, but I do think I agree with you too that Tongue Cat probably wins this one.
yeah. I mean, we have Devin Singletary on the bench, but I'm going to go ahead and make it a bold assumption here that Nate's going to use that third overall waiver wire position and go get a running back to plug in there. So, but that being said, though, I think Tongue Cat is going to be too much firepower. And talk about rookies. Jordan Addison looked pretty good in that opening rep.
For sure.
All right, so then moving on to your matchup here. What are you feeling about your team this week?
I think it's tough, man. I think for me, it's going to come down to it's a little bit of a cop out. But if Andrews plays, I feel like I have a little bit better than 50-50 coin flip here. If Andrews misses again, though, and I have to pick up Taysom Hill again or whatever scrub I use at tight end, I don't feel very good about it. I do think Wuhan's got a good team here. Again, we said it when we were looking over last week's team, but being ranked 7th, so you scored more points than every other team that lost. Just gotten lucky you had a tough matchup for week 1. I think it's probably a coin flip. I would lean myself if Andrews plays. If Andrews does not play, I would lean with you, Matthew.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean that's kind of what I had here. I do kind of look at your team, and I think some of the projections are a smidgy high for some of these guys. Like I think Detroit's defense is a little bit better than people think, and Kenneth Walker, didn't. I mean, Seattle looked
You don't
awful.
like Kenneth Walker though.
I don't, but I also think that Detroit's defense is a little bit better. But I don't know what to think of Seattle right now either in general as an entire unit. Because they got
Their
kind of
offense
shown
is
up.
so bad, man.
They got beat by what I thought was not a very good Rams team, but I don't know.
Not at all.
But yeah, I mean, looking at some of these guys, Waddle, I could see him exploding this week. Pollard, we'll see against that tough Jeff's front, but he'll definitely get his touches and all that being said. So I like your team this week. We'll see about DJ Moore. Hopefully he has a little bounce back for you. And then, with Wazinski here.
Worst time to play someone like T. Higgins is after an 0 for 8 because 2 of the 3 of the first passes thrown are going to T. Higgins. I imagine.
Oh, sure, they're going to throw 2 slants on the first rip. And if they
I know also pick Sky Moore out of that lineup probably like we talked about before.
I'm sure. I'm sure he's out. I'm sure he's out, going to get burned and going to get buried somewhere deep on the depth chart. But so I think we get a flex change here, which kind of obviously increases the projection.
Sure.
So. And I do like some of the matchups we have here for some of these guys. I think, I wrote down here that I liked Wazinski as a win here, but the more I kind of look at it, it's hard to go against McCaffrey. But I think with your full squad healthy and kind of some bounce back guys here, because I think Waddle could kind of go a little nuclear this week, to use the words that you used about Mahomes. I think it's his time to catch up to Tyreek as far as yardage goes. So I'm going to flip my decision initially, and I'll go with you as my pick. But I was on Wuhan at first, so I think it's going to be really tight, really good one. Hopefully, we get all these points that were promised here this week.
Agreed.
Well, look, Ed's starting Anthony Richardson. That makes sense.
Oh,
Are you
yeah, me
start?
too, man. Good choice.
Oh, you are starting. You did make the move, huh? Oh, against Houston. Yeah, I'd probably make that move too.
Watson versus Steelers or a Richardson versus the Texans?
Yeah, if Richardson plays, give me the A
I just don't.
train.
I don't think Richardson's that good in real life, obviously, but I don't think Watson looked very good in real life. Watching him play,
Yeah, I
and
didn't really
I think
catch
it's
too
more
much of
likely
that
Richardson
game,
runs
but
for a touchdown again too. I think it's way more likely he gets a rushing touchdown than Watson does again.
I would concur with that analysis. They're definitely going to design a lot more runs for Richardson than they are Watson.
Agreed.
Just solely due to the amount of money they make in their position. But moving forward here with rear view versus the real team Coleman with Mr. Purcell
Oh,
here.
I love that. Ed took the exact advice I said. He got Akers out of there and put Brees. Good job, Ed.
Yeah, Ed did a good job. I appreciate the guys setting their lineups today. Makes the show a little bit easier. But that being said, yeah, I even put here. I like we are. Oh, I commented about that. I thought I saw he put Laporta in there as a starter, but I guess he reverted back to Kittle. Um, and yeah, I like this team this week. I think these projections are still kind of low for Gibbs and Hall. I think both of them could easily overshoot those by maybe 10 points each. And Flowers even feels like it might be low because they just seem to target him like crazy. But I like this team beating its projection again. I know he didn't last week, but he did get the win. So lots of like on this team. Jets defense is a must start. I don't think you're ever gonna. I don't think it matters who they play. You're just gonna throw them in there.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with you. So you're taking Ed, you think?
Um, I want to give my analysis first to be fair on both sides before I
Oh,
show
I
my
got you.
hand.
Okay, sorry. Just for Ed's
Oh,
analysis, I don't have anything too different to add. I would definitely. You mentioned putting Kittle back in over Laporta. I would definitely stick with Kittle. Kittle's earned more than a few weeks, I think. Of
I would say, and rookie tight ends like you have harped about, what are you going to get? But Laporta did look pretty good in week one,
yeah, he
as far
did.
as rookies go. And I think with this matchup, this projection here for the real team Coleman, obviously pretty big projection for Hurts. But if he hits that projection, then God knows what AJ Brown and Devonta Smith look like. It kind of sucks when you got the two wide receivers on the other team you're going against. So unless Goddard
Joe
has a
Parcells
monster
is
day.
real hard for like the 3 rushing touchdown game out of Hurts.
Yeah, that's probably the only way out, or a huge day for Goddard because if we
Yeah,
are hitting up AJ and Devonta, Hurts is a non-factor. I think Brian Robinson kind of flashed more than expected last week, but Ravens seem to do a decent job with Mixon. Tennessee's defense looked a little meh to me, so I think good bounce back for the Chargers. And then the rest of the way, we could tinker around with that flex spot maybe. But yeah, I definitely after thinking about it, looking at it, I think rear view, I think pulls the upset special here and pulls out another win. Somehow finds himself 2-0, even though he hates his team.
yeah. I also lean Ed. That's why I asked earlier. I think it's gonna be a real close one now.
Yeah, what is your reasoning to lean him? Just is it the same as mine, or is anything different?
It's that I think probably sort of like you talked about. The best bet here, if you're Purcell, is Hurts going off based on your team structure. And I just think if it happens, it's probably going to be because Brown or Smith go off. It's a bad build to go against in that sense. And I also I know the Bengals have generally played the Ravens tough, and the Ravens have played the Bengals tough last 2 or 3 matchups here as far as defensively goes. But I kind of think this week you're going to see a lot of points scored and probably a lot more points through the air based on how bad the Bengals pass offense was. So I don't know if I think Mixon gets a ton of points, and I think Lamar probably is going to put up a lot of points.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's kind of a redemption for both of those offenses, like you said, that they're definitely going to kind of want to come out. And the Ravens looked a lot better in the second half, and obviously the Bengals just looked terrible the whole game. So definitely nowhere to go but up for both those offenses. So I think they're going to maybe use this as a get right situation. So I don't disagree with that. Moving on to Rock Boys versus I'm on a new level. I'm loving these projections. Hopefully we can get some more everybody in the hundreds this week. That would be fun because those low slugfests are not what you come here to pay money for. But yeah, no, as long as Eckler, he's got the ankle tweak. We talked about with Montgomery a little touchdown dependent. Interesting matchups with some of these guys this week. I was not big on Diggs against the Jets defense, but had a huge day. So I don't see why CD can't do the same thing. So I like this squad this week. It'd be interesting to see what Marquise Brown. I know you kind of highlighted him, how he looks this week. Maybe they scheme him a little more. And McLaurin has to do better than 4 points or whatever he had. So I think this team only can go up from where it went last week, and I don't expect 43 points out of the Cowboys defense either. So maybe some balancing with some of those guys playing better and that defense kind of sliding back.
I think it's pretty good analysis generally. Yeah, I similarly think Marquise probably gets a few touches early. I'm a little bit concerned about him generally, but I think probably a little bit of a squeaky wheel game. He was known to be squeaky at points when he was in Baltimore. I imagine he's probably going to get some touches early. I imagine some of what it was last week is Dobbs just didn't feel super comfortable with him yet. I imagine gets better. The one thing I want to point out that I hope doesn't happen, but I have an early, so I'm watching pretty close, is hopefully Eckler is playing and at 100%.
Yeah,
Assuming
I don't know the specifics of the ankle injury yet, but I know he didn't play in the last quarter or so.
yeah,
And he had a huge day still, but
yeah,
yeah, obviously, that you ride the way. It's kind of like Tyreek Hill. You lose him, you lose pretty much any shot you have. It feels
yeah.
like, but that same thing with Kelsey. All those big line guys. So it would suck to see him go out so early. And then I just kind of flipping over to I'm on a new level here. Kind of the same thing I've said about this team. Similar situation. Bounce back in the quarterback room. Same with Josh Allen. Najee probably does better than 4 points. I would say he's already got Javante in there, so I think we like that. And these receivers, like we talk about every week, good luck. I got lucky that the rest of the team did not keep up with them last week, but Jerry Jeudy, if he plays, I don't know what his projection is, but Washington's defense looked like trash against a really bad Cardinals team. The fact that they let them score anything is kind of sad. So yeah, I think both these teams kind of have their star players and their position players kind of shift up as far as where they were last week and maybe get the points that way instead of through the defense.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of different stuff to add there. I lean personally to George here. I think Burrow's going to beat his projection pretty significantly. Personally, as a Ravens fan, but Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Williams isn't going to play.
Let it rip.
A lot of passing getting done, assuming the weather holds up in the way it's currently looking like it's going to in Cincinnati. So I would lean slightly to George here. I think Josh's team is good too. It would beat some other teams we've already looked at, including probably not this week. But I would lean towards George.
Yeah, I kind of took a cop out here on this pick. I said if Eckler plays, I'm going to go Rock Boys. If Eckler's out, I'm on a new level, but it feels close. I just feel kind of like you said about, Burrow beating his projection. Does Josh Allen come out and throw for 450 yards and run for 60 yards? Very well could. And with CD and Terry maybe actually getting some love this week. I think this team can. I think this is going to be a really, really high scoring game in general between both these teams. Maybe into the 130s, 140s. So
it's funny too because you said obviously accurately the Cowboys won't score your 40 points again. But I don't know, man. Zach Wilson, would you be sure for the Cowboys to put up like another 20 burger? Probably not, right?
The defense, I could definitely see them getting close to 20.
That's what I'm saying. The Cowboys defense.
So I think it's kind of going to depend on how the game goes. Like if it's going to be, kind of how like Monday night was, where the Bills never just pulled away and the Jets could just keep running and running and running and keeping the ball in that kind of like low scoring affair, then no. But obviously, if you're going to have to Zach Wilson drop back 30 times, then yeah, Cowboys defense is going to pop. So
I agree. I think the Cowboys are probably one of the top like 6 or so teams in football.
Yeah, I wasn't really high on them this year, but I think they're shutting me up pretty quick here with how much because the Giants aren't bad. They just made them look terrible.
No, I agree with you. I mean, that game's got away from them. I think they're in the same sort of tier, so I could see them getting up by 2 scores and really making it tough on Zach Wilson.
Yeah, that front seven is quite disgusting
for sure.
And kind of going here with the Milkman versus Team Coleman. Are the Bucks like good? I mean, Mike Evans, good day. Baker, good day. If you can get production out of Mike Evans consistently with some of these other guys in this lineup, this team, and obviously you kind of rectify the tight end situation, but if you get consistency out of the flex spot with Mike Evans, this team is going to be really, really hard to beat. I know you talked about the running backs a little bit, but I really like this team moving forward in a lot of different ways here.
Yeah, I like the team a lot too. I just was saying more so, like you talked about Detroit to compare it to Chicago, for example, with Gibbs and Roschon. I mean, or even Algier and Bijan in Atlanta, where my hope as a person who owns the Bears running backs in a different league is just that hopefully because instead of them both getting like 11 touches, which is what happened this past week, if it's like Atlanta where they each got 16, you don't really care who's the starter.
Right.
Ideally, what happens instead is it's more like I don't know, a Ramondre Stevenson and Zeke situation where it's 70-30 or so instead of 55-45.
Right. Yeah.
That's
And
all.
I
And I
yeah.
think they could both be that guy. I just, if it were
Which
me,
one is it going to be?
I would like it to be more clear. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. No, I get that. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to get Mike Evans play, and Mike Evans has always been a hot topic in this league, usually because Mike has him, and Mike always bitches about him because he's so inconsistent as far as fantasy production goes week to week. But if you're going to get anything consistently out of him, and Baker would be dumb to not throw to him. So the team's looking, I think, better than that projection would dictate. And then just sliding over to Coleman here, Tua slides in the starting lineup, obviously, which again we kind of talked about, probably an upgrade. New England defense, they looked good against the Eagles. They got off to a rough start, but really settled in there nicely and made Jalen uncomfortable. And I kind of talked about earlier, I think you get a good bounce back from the Pearson Schultz of the world, and a bounce back against a much less difficult Colts defense compared to the Ravens.
I'm with you. I think probably, even with that said, that Belichick and the Patriots defense look good, I'd probably say Tua beats that projection. I think probably just because waivers haven't run yet. If I was Coleman here, I'd probably not want to play the Patriots defense against my quarterback. I'm sure it's worked out before. It's probably just you don't have another one on your roster, which is why you're doing it. I'm assuming that's what it is.
Yeah.
But when he picks up a different defense, I would probably pick him in this matchup. I think if he does not pick up a different defense for whatever reason, I would take Milkman.
Yeah, so I leaned Coleman here. I think this is a get right game. This team's got a lot of good pieces, and a lot of them underperformed. So I think a lot of these guys are, especially Jamar Chase. We kind of talk about with Burrow. Burrow has a good day. Chase has a great day. So that's kind of how I see this one. Just kind of a slugfest, and if Tampa did give up a lot of yardage to the Vikings though, so Fields could have a nice get back day too. So and it's kind of same situation here we kind of talked about with Purcell versus Ed. We got Tua over here and Tyreek over here. So, but it kind of is almost the other way around. Like if Tua can keep up with Tyreek, then you feel kind of good about it. But
yeah, well, instead of it being like the quarterback's your best player, this Tyreek is more valuable.
It's a flip flop situation. So it's kind of.
I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal, Coleman. Let's throw exclusively to Waddle this week.
Oh, there we go.
Since I have Waddle, I would like.
Sounds like a win-win for everybody. With that being said, that's kind of the wrap up here. So just a synopsis here, just so it's easy for me to find this in the history books. I leaned myself. I forget. Did you lean me as well?
I took risky.
Okay, so you're on risky. Here I think we both leaned Ryan here, getting a nice dub. I already forgot who I picked. Did I pick you? I can't remember.
You said you had originally not picked me, but you were going to steer.
Oh yeah, my notes wouldn't have helped me there. So let me correct that now.
Those, and if you both picked me, and then we differed, you versus risky.
Yep, got it. Yeah, I got the rest of this down here, so that's good. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No, it's good.
Then we got here a rear view. I think we both liked Ed this week and pulling the upset.
Yep.
And then here, I copped out with the Eckler situation. So
I took George.
Yeah, you're hard on George. I am with Josh if Eckler plays. I am with George if he does not. So it's kind of a cop out, but it is what it is. And then last one here,
so I can't complain.
And then Team Coleman, it was my choice in the last one.
Yeah, me too. So we probably only disagree then on the one. Or actually, no, because I think Eckler's more likely than not to play. So we're probably going to disagree on two of them.
Yeah, so that's about where Ed and I were. But just a fun little exercise here I did. I'm going to try to think of some stuff to do each week. But I went back through the history books and took everyone's record and put it on the screen here in 1 second to just kind of show the history books here. So pretty interesting here when you look at the career records here. We give a lot of shit to Purcell about not knowing about football, but the guy's rocking a 690 winning percentage lifetime in fantasy football, which is very, very high.
Wow.
So yeah, he's been in 2 championship games and had some dominant seasons. So as much shit as we talk about him and his lack of football knowledge, seems to find a way to pull out W's in fantasy football. And then,
good job, Purcell. That's sick, man.
Yeah, that's a big number. Then moving down here, we got the 2 new guys. Smaller sample size, but 2 good seasons under the belt. This is factoring in week 1, by the way. So Josh 10-5, you're 9-6. Not good. Good to get going in the right direction here early in a new league. George, 595, really good. Ed, 497 or 595, 47, 2 championship game appearances. So guy who doesn't light up the regular season, but gets in the playoffs and gets it done. Zach here, kind of pretty. He had one rough season and then 2 good ones. Sliding me and Tyler here, 21 and 21 is kind of funny. My first year in the league, I was 4 and 9, so I made a nice comeback over the years. And then you kind of get down here to some of the guys who haven't had as much success, which some room to grow, but you definitely can see some trends here as far as guys with how they how certain things go. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because I was looking at it and I just saw Purcell's record and I was like, that's unbelievable. And as much shit as I talk, that's
crazy. That's
yeah.
pretty impressive. So how good were the 2 people that me and Josh replaced? Because
So we were a 10-team league before this, so
okay.
we expanded to a 12. So there were no people before. So
That's impressive then for you, Purcell, actually, just because you're 100 points of winning percentage basically up on anybody else who's played the whole time with you.
that's quite impressive. But
Pretty wild.
yeah, it just kind of goes to show you, who has been putting in the time, who kind of gets it, and who maybe needs a little bit more time in the lab. So, with that being said, I think we're about done here. And anything to comment on the way out here?
Nope. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate all you do for the league. Again, it's really fun to be a part of. Looking forward to hopefully talking again sometime.
Yeah, definitely have you on again. Good luck to everyone in week 2, and let's score some points.